Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with Scrapping for Less and their Flavor of the Month card kit. And for October 2020, the theme is Christmas is Covered. So let's go over the contents first for the double dip. First, our cardstock. You will get 2 sheets of the Accent Opaque, 100-pound electric red, snow cone, nightshift blue, black licorice, gumdrop green, and gray craft. Now, for some reason, I felt the need to mix up the packets. So this packet here is actually collection 4, and it is called Believe, as is the stamp and the paper by Scrapping for Less. There's also some ephemera by them as well, and some enamel dots by Gina Marie Designs. So now we're going to go back to collection 1, because, again, I felt the need to mix up the collections, because, let's face it, that's what I do. So this one is called Classic Cardinals, and the paper and the stamp set is called that as well by Scrapping for Less. Piece of ribbon by Desiree and some enamel dots. This, what I'm showing here, is actually collection 2, and this is called Starry Night Wishes. Again, as is the paper collection and the stamp set. Now, when it comes to this stamp set, this is with Scrapping for Less and Tawny Owl Papery. Isn't that adorable? You gotta love snowmen. Star sequins and another thing of enamel dots. For collection 3, this is called Merry Special Delivery. I'm absolutely loving the paper. I love the bold plaids and the red, the black, and the white, and the gray. Loving those colors. You have some tags by Desiree. You also get some enamel dots. And again, the stamp and the paper is called Merry Special Delivery. So everything that I just went through is in the double dip. Now what I'm showing are the contents of the banana split. So you will get a tag die by Scrapping for Less, some Christmas elements stencil by Scrapping for Less, a bundle of twine, and some sequins. So let's go right into our first card. So for this card, I'm actually going to be following the first sketch. Now, as always, the sketch sheet and also the ingredient sheets will be linked down below in the video description so that you can get your copy and print it down. So for this, I'm actually going to be following sketch number 1. And I'm going to take the 2 tags that were in the collection, and I'm going to stamp 2 of the images. Now, this stamp set, of course, will go with my tag stamp sets. I love tags. Tags, snowflakes, snowmen, poinsettias. Yeah, they're kind of like my go-tos when it comes to especially Christmas, especially tags. I love making tags and ornaments. It's very addicting. Sometimes that's what I give as a card. I'm just saying. So let's get back to the card. So we're going to layer our cardstock. I did choose the gray craft from the solid, and I cut a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panel. I cut my pattern paper to be 4 by 5 1/4, and I used the largest die to cut a die from a piece of the pattern paper. Now I'm going to create my toppers for each of my tags. Now I like to have a lot of fullness. I like to have almost like a tassel coming off of it. Now this was too long. I always double up my twine. I didn't want to put any ribbon onto this. I really just wanted to stick with the natural color of the twine. I'm going to set that up, and I'm not going to trim the loops. I'm going to let them stay loopy like that. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other 2. Now the other 2 are smaller, and one of the things that I thought I was missing were the rings around the holes. The Distress Vintage photo, of course you knew that was going to come into the video at some point. But I did go around each of the tags, and I always have plain white hole reinforcements. I use these on my journals, excuse me, when I'm making a tag. So after I punch out the hole, I will use these. And what's great, since they're just white, I can make them any color I want using my dye inks. So really versatile. I mean, if I wanted to make them black, I could make them black instead, and just add the color onto the tag that way as well. So I am going to add those, and I did add them to both sides, and you'll see why. So I'm putting the last tassel here in place, and of course it's, you know, going to fight me, but we're just going to continue to pull that through. So we are going to make that work. So now I'm just playing with my placement. I want them to be on the front of my card. What I didn't want to do, though, was to adhere them to the front of my card. So what I'm actually going to do is create a pocket. So I took a piece of the black cardstock, cut that to size. I'm going to place the pattern paper on top of that, so it'll have a little bit of a border that goes around it. And then I'm going to come in with my liquid glue, and I'm only going to put glue on 3 of the edges, because then I'll keep that top open, and then that will actually create a pocket. I'm keeping the tags in place so I know where my pocket needs to go. And then I'm just going to make sure that they are in there. So when I give this to the recipient, I'll be able to say on the inside, tags on the outside are for you to use for your gifts. We always need a tag. I'm always running out of tags. And, you know, I'm the type of person that if we have people that will stop by because they're making their journeys to wherever they're going for the holidays, and I must always have a gift. Must always give them something. So I have tags. It's just something I do. So I'm using 4 of these small enamel dots, and I'm putting them in each corner. So it's going to make it look like there's a brad there. Now, if you have brads, I encourage you to use brads. They are just something that is underused, and I think they are great and add so much to the front of a card. So for our second card, I'm using the Collection 2, and I'm going to be using Sketch 2. Now, as always, when I make these cards, I do take care of the coloring off camera and any fussy cutting that I've done. Now, the cutting that I've done around this image, I used my decal scissors. I'm getting so excited. The decal trimmer is almost out. Yeah, I'm so excited. Anyway, so I've used my double-sided foam tape. Excuse me, my squares. And I prop that up onto another circle using my vintage photo. I'm going to take a sentiment, and yes, I cut it. It did not scream. And I want that to curve around the image. Now, these, you really got to work it to get these to bend. You want to make sure there's no moisture on your acrylic block, no moisture on the stamp itself, because then it will hold its shape. The piece, I really had to push that down. Now, I have a little bit of ink, you can see above the N there. And that's okay. I'm going to come in with a sand eraser, and then I'm not. I like the sand eraser, but I don't have good luck with it. I like a white gel pen. Covers everything. I can just go right over that, put a little bit of white. No one's going to notice unless they go right up. And if they do, then they should be gently tapped with the card. Again, we are not Hallmark. It's a handmade card. You know, stuff happens. And it's okay. That's what makes it even more unique than what it already is. So I'm going to layer up my pattern paper onto my solid cardstock. I'm using the gray craft along with the navy blue. Now you can see I also have those layers as well for my larger panel off to the left there. But I totally forget. Well, it's not that I forget. When I went to put down the other layers, so I started with the pattern paper like I'm doing here, and me and tape runners, we just do not get along. Again, totally operator error. So I put this one down, I'm fine, I'm in the center of it, you know, it's not too bad. For some reason, well, okay, I know the reason. You can see the blue paper, the navy blue, very clear. When I'm filming and looking down on this black mat, I cannot see black or dark blue cardstock. And what I need to get used to is to grab a piece of paper or my scratch pad that I ink blend on so that I can see the edge of that cardstock. Just to fix it, all I did was cut around the edge. I'm going to keep the cardstock there. I'm not going to try to take that off. So I'm going to have a white border going on around this image, which I'm totally fine with. And that blue going along this strip just makes that strip pop just a little bit more. I'm going to put this down onto an angle on my card, and then I will trim the edges using my scissors. And I did want that to go straight on to the edge. My image is going to sit right across that stripe that I went across my card. I'm going to put a little bit of my tape runner there, and I'm going to set that right down. And that is our second card. So for our third, I'm going to be making a slimline, but following sketch 3. So I've cut a panel. Now my slim lines are always 3.5 by 8.5. So I've cut a panel to be about 3.25 by 8.25. So I'm adding just some strips. I had some scrap strips of the gray craft, and I'm putting one to the top and to the bottom, and I'm going to make this an extremely long tag. So I cut off the one end, I flip it over, and then cut it to the other side, and then this way it's even. I'm going to take a piece of vellum and a pencil, and I'm just going to draw a line to show where I need to cut and trim that vellum, because the vellum is just a little bit smaller than the tag. I did not make it the same exact size as the tag. I'm going to use the stamp Believe because I just think it is absolutely adorable and perfect for a tag. I'm going to stamp on a piece of vellum, and I'm going to pull out my white embossing powder because I'm going to heat set that. Now this is my Recollections Snow detailed white that I'm using. I am really a fan of the Recollections embossing powders. I just think I get a better coverage with them. It could be me. I'm sure it's me. But I just really do think I do. So I find that I grab those just a little bit more. With one layer, it comes out really smooth and solid. I don't get spaces. It's odd. Again, it's me. So I cut some circles from the pattern paper set, and I grabbed one of the pieces of ephemera, and I'm going to put this on the circle cardstock, and then I'm just playing with the other ones, where they're going to be placed. Should they be above the vellum? Should they be below the vellum? Of course, as I'm looking at this, and when I stare at this too long, vintage photo needs to come in. So I'm going to prop the piece of ephemera up using my foam squares. I'm going to cut my sentiment down. I just want that gray to sit behind it, and I'm going to glue the ephemera with the circle onto that. I just want that to stick because then that's going to help me with the placement. It's like a little tiny handle that I just created there, because this I want on top of the vellum. The other two circles, I want them to go to the back. So I'm going to use the vellum to push them back. Once I know where I'm going to go, again, I have not adhered my vellum yet, so I'm able to lift this up and move it. I'm going to place my pieces down and just real quick get some glue down so that I don't lose where that placement is. And then again, just tilting that up so that I can get some glue down. And I'm only going to put glue where the cardstock is, underneath the vellum. And then that's going to hold that in place. Now, you're probably saying, yes, but this is a tag. How are people going to use it? I mean, this is an awesome tag. This is a tag of tags. I love this tag. But it's huge and it's awesome. So I did punch a hole in the top of it. I am going to use my hole reinforcements. You can see that I'm putting them on both sides because, again, this will be a removable tag. So I'm going to put my topper in my tag because we always have to have a very tassel-like fringe coming off my tags. The more the better. So now what I'm doing is I put the tag onto my card base. And I have my pokey tool. And I'm going to puncture holes along the spine of the card. And then I'm going to go through with my tool just to make it bigger. I'm going to cut 2 strands of twine. And I'm going to double them up. I'm going to grab a needle because I thought that's going to be a heck of a lot easier to get the twine through the holes. So for each one, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to poke it through that hole on the top and the bottom. Then, I don't know how I came up with this. Again, I didn't want to use repositional tape or glue or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie it. So I'm going to have one at the base and one at the bottom. Now, if you notice, though, the one at the bottom is right up underneath the ephemera. So that's going to catch that string. So it's not going to fall down. And it's going to hold it in place. And then the other one at the top just keeps the top against the top of the card. It's something different. And then this way, again, I'll write a note inside saying the tag is yours to use. Although I don't know if that one's going to make it anywhere. So, okay, on to our next card. Last one. So the cardinals. You got to love cardinals. Again, all the coloring was done offline. So I have this panel. And what I did was I took the one stamped down on the corner. And then for the one in the upper left-hand, left-hand corner, I only used a part of the other stamp. Because there's a cardinal in that one as well. I'm creating all of my layers. So for each piece of pattern paper, it's going to have a red back. Now, again, pattern papers, when they're set like this, are made to go together. You can layer them on top of each other. However, if you want to give yourself some dimension or texture, just by using your pattern paper, put a piece of solid cardstock behind it. And that will make that pop and give it layers without you having to use any foam squares or foam tape. The other panel that I have here, I'm going to set that down into the bottom right-hand corner because I did like the pattern of the houses on that paper that's to the back there. I grabbed the sentiment of Happy Holidays, and I'm going to stamp that, yes, after I put it onto my card front, prep it with my anti-static tool. I'm going to use my clear ink, and I'm going to stamp that. And then what I'm going to do, I had an idea. I pulled out my embossing pen, and I'm just scratching along those branches that are coming out. I mean, very light. It looks like I'm covering the whole thing. I'm not. I'm letting the pen skip. I'm letting it move around, and I'm coming in with an antique gold embossing powder, and I believe this is from Simon Says. I'm going to really let my heat tool warm up, only because I've got all of these layers going on. I don't want to be on this card too much because my cardstock warps. But this, I was very happy to say, did not. So it kind of held together. Now, I needed something up in the upper right-hand corner. It just looked very bare. it just didn't have enough. It needed something, and I didn't want to add more enamel. So I'm going to take the red ribbon, and I'm going to real quick, which I was pretty impressed. It was pretty quick. I'm going to tie a bow and just put that up into the corner. And yes, I did follow sketch 4 for this one. Yeah. And I'm going to use a mini glue dot, and I'm going to put that right in the upper corner there. And that is that card. I really like this one. It's just got that classic feel. So for the stencil, I wanted to play around with the stencil, and that's what I wanted to show you, what you can do with this stencil. So the stencil has many images on it. So why can't we have some fun with those images? So I grabbed some tags from my stash. I keep tags on hand, especially for my journal side, because that's where they go in. I grabbed a makeup sponge, and I'm putting my clear ink in where it says Merry Christmas. Now I'm just going to do this to a bunch of tags. Again, having fun with it. And I think I do 3 of them, but you'll actually only see 2 of the completed projects. And again, I'm just using a makeup sponge to apply this down. I get them from my local dollar store. So we've got one more here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a gold embossing powder, and I'm going to heat set that. So you can use your stencils to emboss. Just make sure you're using your clear ink. You know, sometimes I'll use the pad to go directly down, but I destroy pads. So trying to make this one live just a little bit longer than all my other ones. Just saying. I'm going to pull in that same Antique Gold by Simon Says. And I'm just coating those with the embossing powder. And I'm going to make sure that goes back into my container. And I will heat set those. And you can see it's a really pretty image. So now this also has a poinsettia with a banner. It's got a snowflake star, and it's got hollies. So right now I'm focusing on what I'm referring to as the snowflake star. So I grabbed a couple of my inks. I'm going to start out with my lightest one, and I'm going to put that color down. And then I'm going to come in with the darker one, and I'm going to focus on the center of the snowflake. Just to give it some dimension. And again, I'm just going to go into the center very lightly and then blend that out to the outer edge. And right there, very simple. Just those 2 things, you've got a great tag for a gift. Now here, when it comes to stencils, you got to make sure you block off. Yeah, that was my block off your stencils. Make sure your paper's not covered, because I get dangerously ridiculous. Now here I am trying the sand eraser. It got some of it off, but I find I'm going into the paper, and plus I'm impatient. I don't have the time to sit there and hold on to that. So what do? We cover it up with another holly set. And we make sure we're good. Don't go into the snowflake star. And you can see it just went right around the C because that was embossed. So you are still doing an emboss resist. I'm coming in just with a darker color just to give it some shadow to those holly leaves. And of course, I've got to work in 3s. So I am going to set another one off of the other side of the sentiment. So you'll see I'm going to put that right there, and being very careful not to go over to get it onto the cardstock, because then I would have had 2 more. It was a vicious cycle. But again, we can cover it up just by placing something else there. Of course, I'm going to go around these with my vintage photo just to give it some color and shade. For the holly, I used my Nuvo red glitter drops, and I'm just adding some berries. Now, I'm gently tapping these down, and of course that one really flattened out. So I'm just going to add a little bit more to the other two to make it look similar. You could also add pearls to these, you could add gems to these, but very simple. I mean, a tag is a beautiful tag. Doesn't matter what size, what it looks like. But I had a lot of fun with that stencil. I mean, you can do a lot. There's snowflakes. So there are many images that you can create just by using them. So as always, and in normal speed, I always show you or re-show you what the cards look like that we made using the Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month card kit. And this month's theme is called Christmas is Covered. So as always, the links will be down below in the video description for the ingredient sheet, the sketches, to their shop. Make sure you get this kit. This one I'm sure is going to go really fast. And if you subscribe, be patient. It'll be there shortly. I'll also have links for their blog so that you can be inspired by other designers and their creations. If you haven't yet, I'd love for you to hit that button, be part of my group here and subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell so that you know when the next video is live and ready for you to watch. If you have a question, leave that down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Continue to enjoy your day. Continue to enjoy the time getting ready for the holidays that are very fast approaching. I cannot believe it. But most of all, continue to stay safe and healthy. But remember what's most important for me as well. Just do it a little bit. Always be creative. Till next time, guys. Take care.